Look, I know you've already achieved unheard of levels of success as an entrepreneur. So the real question is, while the world is radically shifting, how do we not get caught up in the chaos, but instead access our untapped capacity? You know what I'm talking about. I'm Katie Richardson, business coach to superstar entrepreneurs and host of What's Working Now. I'm here to show you how to unlock and magnify your untapped potential so that we can create the dream, live with purpose, and do what we are born to do. On this podcast, we are asking a different set of questions. Be present, be curious, be right now. Let's go. Hit that subscribe button and go to what'sworkingnow.com, drop in your email, join the waitlist so you never miss an episode of What's Working Now. And I'll see you on the inside. It's What's Working Now. My name is Katie Richardson. Today, we're going to talk about how you can think bigger in order to bless the world. Who's going to teach us about this? It's Jared Walther, of course. Jared is focused on regional transformation, making people's lives better by investments into clean energy, commercial real estate, Christian nonprofits, both men and women's clean and sober homes, and training the new generation for success. Jared's wife, Stephanie, has helped start with him and his wife, Stephanie. They have helped to start over 300 small businesses in Kenya and 10 in Nigeria. His passion is helping people to think bigger. Jared, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Jared, you know, it would be very easy to say think bigger and like be full of smoke, but people need to understand that this is a guy who is closing on a skyscraper right now. You've got a yacht. You've helped build nuclear power plants. You 3D print buildings. Like, I need people to understand, like, Jared is not just, this is not just some phrase that he's throwing around. Like, no. You really mean it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, get what you want and settle for nothing until you get it. And then sometimes, okay, so you mentioned the yacht. I don't quite own it yet. I'm in process.
There we go.
I had to buy it because it felt impossible. I had to, because I looked around and I've made a decision to say nothing will stop me from thinking like I can't do it. So when we were walking around those boats at the Miami International Boat Show and we were looking at them, and I'm like, wow, like I've never been around boats like that, really. And I've grown up with boats, but it was for like a lake or a river, you know, a nice speedboat. But when I looked at it, I said, okay, I felt the challenge. I felt the impossibility of it. I felt well, why would you? And it's expensive and it costs 10%. Like, we looked at a $7 million boat. So that's $700,000 a year to upkeep. I'm like, well, then I just got to make more money.
Well, okay. And this is, I mean, you brought up the fact that we hung out together with an exclusive group of incredible entrepreneurs, and we're really rubbing shoulders to do this thing where it's like helping each other to think bigger. And, you know, that's definitely what I noticed about you is you're doing it in a way that you're having fun too.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
That's super important. So, Jared, tell us the story of the experience that you had. When was that moment where you really gained this new view on the world of thinking bigger? How did that even come into play in your life?
Well, two part. So my dad in the 80s made real good money, 210,000 in the 80s. That's when gas was 89 cents. Milk was like 80, 90, maybe $1 a gallon. Eggs were like, I don't know, 30 cents. So when you got 210K coming in a year, you could do whatever you want. My dad didn't give me none of that money. He raised me like I was a 1940s latchkey kid, and I had to do a paper route, rain, sunshine, wind, to buy anything I wanted. And Nintendo came out. I was born in 1980. What? 1980?
Yeah.
And Nintendo came out, and I saw that digital bean jumping around pipes and turtles. I had to have it. Well, it was $100 in 1985. I'm 6 years old. $100 is like $1 billion.
Yeah.
And so I did whatever I could. I went door to door and I sold, different fundraisers, and I did newspapers and whatever. And so I learned how to grit myself into what I wanted, but I wanted it so bad it wasn't like work. So that's where it started. But then fast forward many years, just kind of doing what everybody does, working jobs and things. My wife and I got married in 2005, and we were going to Kenya. And I'm leaving on Sunday, the 26th, to go again.
Nice.
Like I don't even know how many times between that story I'm telling you and Sunday, a lot. But we didn't have any money, and so we were getting married. We said, "Don't give us any money. No, sorry, don't give us any gifts. Give us money to go to Africa." And money
Hmm.
started showing up. Money came to me. It began the attraction of money for a vision that people could see that's awesome for me, but is also serving a wider vision than myself.
Hmm.
And I had back then it felt like a lot. I think it was like $3,500 in cash show up in hundreds, and they knocked on my doors. My youth pastor, he goes, "Don't ask where it came from. Take it, enjoy."
Mm.
And so I bought the first iPod player so I could listen to sermons and music and teachings and whatever. And then I used it to buy my wife's ring and her dress. And then it bought us tickets, and then it paid for all of it. It paid for what I needed to get to where I needed to go. And then I realized sometimes you have to do things that you don't have the money for, believing in faith, walking with vision and mission and purpose, and then it attracts the money. So that is the moment that I
Mm.
that I learned this lesson, and that it translates into many, many, many different arenas. And that
Uh-huh.
allows you to do many, many different things by empowering other people, attracting money and empowering other people. And then you could do lots of things all at the same time.
Right. Jared, so good. I want to go a little bit deeper on this because I experienced some of this and I've witnessed clients as well. Sometimes as your wealth starts to grow, especially if you're Christian and you are a follower of Christ and you read in the scriptures, like, blessed are the poor, for they shall inherit the earth. And like none of the prophets were necessarily, not none, that's total overgeneralization, but like Christ himself, it's not like he had money spilling out of his pockets, right? And so we can almost by default just start interpreting that being a good Christian means not having means and being really resourceful instead. And so as money and wealth starts to grow, I've witnessed Christians who have this guilt for
Mm.
having money. Did you ever experience any of that? Because you're this thinking bigger. I definitely noticed how you were thinking bigger in this very service oriented base, right? Like the more resources I have, the more I can serve and help and
Yeah,
do incredible things in Africa. So explain a little bit more that frame of
sure.
service and like how the money, how the money plays into that.
So I've never felt guilty one day of my life about money, having money, not
Wow.
having money, or having money. Nope, not a blip, my friend.
Wow.
And that's total
Ha.
freedom. So if anything it comes out of this where someone's listening and they get free of money guilt, that's great. Okay, couple things on that. Our father Abraham is the father of faith. How rich was he?
That's
Really
true.
rich.
Abraham was very rich. Yeah.
Really rich, right? Because he followed. What about Job? Had a lot, lost a lot, gained a lot back, right? What
Mm-hmm.
about Jesus? People think he was poor. When he needed something, he multiplied bread and fish and food when he wanted it. When he had to pay
Yeah.
a temple tax, he said, "Go fishing, pull out a 2 drachma coin and pay our tax." He was above money. He didn't need it
Mm.
because when he wanted it, he commanded it so, and it appeared. It's actually the freest form. It wasn't that he
Mm.
was poor, it's that he didn't need a bank account because whatever he needed, he just made happen. Um,
Oh,
so
that's so good.
so basically I've learned by that to be above money, and that's why I keep the background. I'm above it because I'm not in it. I'm not under it. I'm not in that system. And
Yeah.
so a little piece of tidbit that I got maybe a week ago. One of Jesus's teaching was you can serve God or money, but you can't serve both. And so I
Mm.
served God a long time ago where money was scarce. And what I'm realizing now is when you serve God, money's under your feet. But when you serve money, you try and put God under your feet and he don't stay there. So
Oh.
he doesn't. And so I serve God, so money serves me because I'm above money. I don't work for money. Money comes to me because, like you said, when you have a service attitude of how can I change my city? And then you look at your city and they're short on park and recreation budget. They need to redo all the
Hmm.
parks or the schools. And you're like, what do I got to do to build or repair all the parks? And then you look at different ways to make money, and then it makes you insanely rich because you're trying to serve the community or the city or the nation or the region you're in.
Hmm.
And then you think, well, what do I got to do to make it's just like when I was a boy. I want the Nintendo. What do I got to do to get it? And so when you
Mm.
want to see your city changed, it's just different numbers, but we need this in our city. What do I got to do to get it? I'm going to pay for the whole thing. And then you're like, well, I need 6 skyscrapers. Done. Let's go. And then it takes off. It's not about you anymore. And so I would love to give away 90 and live on 10 and
Hmm.
deploy all that capital. I don't want to wait and hoard it all and figure out I should start to be generous when I'm at the end of life. I'd rather figure it out at the beginning and just enjoy my life to the full all the way through. So that's kind of the philosophy.
I mean, I love hearing your mindset. I love hearing how you're framing things. I hope people are picking up on this because that is where it starts. Creation has two phases. The first is spiritual, where it lives in thought and mind and words. And then we go create our physical life from that place. And hearing how you frame things and how you phrase them and where it has you focusing and how because of that, how you are so open to opportunities and God can come in and make incredible things happen because you're not out there trying to force it. You're not out there saying this is how it's going to happen. You kind of zoom out. And you mentioned your background. For anybody who's not watching on video, he's got the cosmos behind him. He's well above the earth. You can see the edge of the earth and the
Yeah.
light on the earth, and he's out beyond the world, which is awesome. You're very zoomed out
Yes.
in your life.
Yes.
So something that can start to happen as you are serving at this high level and you have your hands in many different areas is life starts to get pretty complex, or at least I would imagine that life would get very complex. You're a father, you have, remind me, is it 5 kids, Jared?
Four. Four.
4. Only 4.
They
That's
have
a
me.
lot, right?
Them.
That's that's a lot. And so and you have teams of people and you've got businesses that you're helping to support in Africa and you've got nuclear power plants that you help work on and skyscraper. Like there's a lot of complexity there. What are some things that you do to help you really stay grounded in that complexity and not really get disoriented?
Okay, it's pretty simple, but
Love it.
it's very simple. It's Robert Kiyosaki's 4 quadrant, where you want to be. Rich Dad Poor Dad 101. So you're gonna be an employee, you gotta be a SE, a self-employed, then there's that vertical line, and then on the other side, it's a B and an I. So whatever you do in life, you're a B and an I. That's where he says you want to be, and that's where you do want to be. And so people, the way I say it is, how many stocks can you invest in? And how much time does that take out of your life to invest in stocks? None. Well, how many companies can you be a part of that way? Infinite. So if you run your
Mm.
life like that and you invest in life like stocks, I could do anything I want to because it doesn't require my time. I'm involved at an investor level, business level. I'm not self-employed where that's my job, but I'm empowering other people who that is their job and they want to do that and they love it. So, I'm right in talks right now to build a small modular reactor from NuScale. I'm not there putting the containment vessels together. I'm not figuring out the design and the tensile strength and pressure and all that stuff as an engineer would. I've done not exactly that, but similar type engineering things. And then I'm not assembling them. Floor is doing that. And Floor has people. That's what Floor does. So basically, what I do is I modularize my life and I fill what I could do with people whose life mission it is to do that. So
Mm.
I find the skyscraper builder who's super excited to do the next build. I get with the architect who's super excited to do this dream project. So I got an offer to build the number one beautiful building in Dallas yesterday, and I'm gonna do it. Why? Because it's awesome. Why not do it? All the details. I'm like, done. And I guess that's the next thing. When you say it, it's finished. Like when you say it, you never mince words again. You when I say done, I'm releasing the finality of it in the future into the moment today. And so for me,
Okay.
it's finished.
Okay, I've got a question around something like this. You know, as you grow and expand and you're in this place of abundance and prosperity, that also means more and more opportunities are coming to you.
All
So,
day.
are there any sort of parameters or things that help you determine what's a yes and what's a no? Because I would guess you're probably also saying no to a lot of things as well. So, how do you determine that?
I say this is dangerous. Disclaimer, don't copy everything I'm saying. Okay.
Sure.
All right. I say yes till it's a no. So that's my life's motto. It's a yes
Oh,
till it's a no. And so
interesting.
that opens me up to lots of different sectors and things because I want to be curious and I trust the experts that are in that field. And I'm like, well, I believe in people. And then I
Mhm.
speak that belief into them, and they're like, that's kind of all they needed. They just needed to know someone they might, if they look up to me or respect me or whatever, believes in them. You look them in the eye, like, I believe you could do it. I'm trusting you. Here's the money. And they're like, whoa. And that empowerment takes something I don't know anything about biochemical stuff to make uh, absorption of vitamins better. They just told me about it. I'm like, I like the idea. I don't see anything wrong with it. You're a PhD, you're a doctor. You've been doing this since 1983. You're looking for $1 million. All right, let's go. And so I go because it helps people, helps them.
Mm.
It's empowering. I don't need to know about it. I'm the head, but I may not be in charge. You know, it's like that whole Greek thing. The man's the head, but the wife's the neck and turns them wherever you go. Right? So it's like I'm the head, but I love empowering people. I love exploring. I love being curious. Now, they also came to me, and people could disagree with me on this. I don't do cannabis. I don't want to help people smoke more joints and open their mind that way. I like my way, right? So I don't do, so they offered me that, like, oh, we could do this and this and this. I'm like, nah, I don't do that. So if it's anything to do with drugs or, that kind of stuff, I found, listen, disclaimer, I did smoke ton of weed in college. So it's not like I don't know what I'm talking about. It didn't help. It didn't make me any better. And it kind of dulled your mind into a cloud. I think there's just better ways to solve issue. If you're smoking for those issues, there's better ways that don't cloud your mind, that don't make you numb, that you could still solve problems. I smoked it because it was fun. Because everybody's like, let's do it. Okay, let's go. Right? And it was fun. But then I said, I gotta come above this. It's actually a limiting factor in my life. So I don't do cannabis. That was when it was illegal. Now it's celebrated. Now it's like super legal, most places. So I say no to those kind of things, but it's a yes till it's a no. And then I get to like look at hydrofoil electric boats that run on, electric like cutting edge stuff. Like, yeah, why not? That's cool. And if it disrupts the market and makes life better, then I'll try it. Now, eventually, I'm sure it'll bite me at some point. But then you hedge yourself in a 360-degree pattern by all your other investments. It doesn't really matter. So it's
Mhm.
it's it's money you could afford to lose, I suppose, instead of banking your whole life savings on some new idea that may or may not work. Like Laserdisc, sorry, didn't pan out, right? I didn't. But you know what I mean? Like MySpace, sorry, it didn't work. Facebook won. So you don't always win just because it's very close to what did win. So I just say that, but it's a yes till it's a no. Is the phrase I use.
And then like, are you verbally saying yes to the other individual, or are you saying, that sounds super cool, let me think about it? And internally you're a yes. I'm just curious that distinction.
I let me think back. I say I'm open to it. I want to learn more, and
Okay.
sometimes I say it's a yes till it's a no. I
Yeah.
guess I could tell them that, but I
Yeah.
think they figure that out when I'm talking to them, like when they're pitching me some sort of whatever, I'm like, what's the exit? So if I give you this money, when do I get paid back? What's the exit? What's it look like? And so I'm asking them questions that imply hard yes, because it is until it's a no. So I guess they figured it out, I guess. Because I'm not coming to it like, well, I gotta think. I'm thinking about it right now with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're kind of brainstorming together, vision casting the future together, where I don't then go
Mm-hmm.
back and then I don't do that privately. I do that publicly with them as if success is inevitable. And then if it's not, I'm like, sorry guys, that's like a fatal flaw. That ain't gonna work. But we find
Yeah.
that out together. And if you do it the other way and you think about it and you're kind of doing it in the blind, you go forward, you sign papers, you then begin that process of brainstorming of how to bring it to
It's
light.
true.
And then you find out the fatal flaw. I find out right away because I believe let's
Mm-hmm.
do this. So I got it. I got the answer for free without having to sign anything, I suppose.
Like it's like that Jim Carrey movie from the early 2000s. Wasn't it called Yes Man? He was just saying yes to
Yes.
everything.
Yeah,
That's you.
that's right.
And closing on skyscrapers. I love it. So, as I'm trying to imagine our listeners right now, actually, and they're hearing you talk about giving people money, and yet they're ignoring the beginning of your story where you didn't have the
No,
money and
no,
you had this open mind. I feel like there's still this. I want people to see this, that you didn't start there with the money in the bank account and with all the assets that you have now and the network and the connections, but you had it in your mind. And
yeah.
that's the first piece. So as you have all of these different projects and things that you're working on, things that you're investing in, I can imagine also that there's very clearly tremendous passion in you, Jared. And so I'm really curious how you would describe your personal mission. Maybe it's a North Star, but what's the thing that's really driving you to continue to think bigger? I'm sure there's a lot of people around you who don't think bigger. And so you're kind of the lone wolf sometimes in that place. So what is it that allows you to stay focused on that mission, not let the naysayers creep in, and to really continue to live that purpose? What is it for you?
Hmm. You want the real answer or the fake answer?
Yeah, no, I don't like the fake answer, Jared. Give me the truth. Give me the brutal truth. Give me the truth. Yeah, not the fake stuff.
You sure?
I know it might include Jesus, and give it to me.
Okay, it does.
Good, good.
A couple, a couple times. Let me give you the purpose behind it. You have to know truth when you see it, and then when truth exposes itself to you and it costs you everything, you push the chips in the middle. So what people aren't hearing and seeing is all the times I almost went broke, all the times it was super
Mm-hmm.
stressful,
Mm-hmm.
all the times I went up the wrong tree, the wrong path, and it looked, this is the books all tell you to do this, and I'm doing it, and God's like, did you ask me? I'm like, well, no. He's like, well, I didn't want you to do that. All right, so I'll tell that story. So I've got a building I could refinance. It's called the Burr method. We won't get into it, but basically you buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, Burr. And that's how you take assets and take the equity out and do more things with it. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a building. I bought it for 2 million. Long story short, seller financing from an older gentleman, and I'm the quote unquote young buck coming up. So he sold it to me, and he sold it for 2 million. It's worth 5. So I tried to. He didn't know that, by the way. So
Good.
always know how
He
to do
doesn't need
commercial
to.
real estate. No, he didn't know. He didn't know. So, but he bought it for like 400,000. So for him, it was great, and for me, it was great. It all worked out. So I got that building, and then I had an opportunity to do more investments. I'm like, great, let's get the money out. I tried to refinance that building last year when rates were going up like a skyrocket,
Uh-huh.
and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Nobody could, they did it. We're almost to the finish line, and they would never sign the papers. And I'm getting stressed out. This went on for months. And I'm telling the guy with the deal, oh, it's coming. Yeah, it's done. The guy said it's finished. Nothing would happen. And
Mm.
finally, I feel like I got a little tap on my shoulder, like, did you ever ask me what to do? Like, God. And I'm like, no. Like, why don't you just ask people for the money? I'm like, that's ridiculous. You know, who's going to give me I needed $2 million. I said, who's going to give me $2 million for like some unproven method? And so, but see, it takes faith and it takes risk and it takes trust. And so what I did is but see, I had fully exhausted the refinance pathway to the point of stress. I'm not happy. I'm upset every day. I'm not doing well. That should be some indicators for you in your life. And those listening, that should help you understand you're barking up the wrong tree when your soul is telling you you're doing it wrong. And I didn't listen. I'm like, oh, those are just let's just keep going, right? And so I love pursuit. So I'm getting faster at recognizing the signs of not going the right path. And so
Mhm.
I closed down all the refinance people. They were working for me all over the nation trying to refinance this thing. I said no. I had to say no to like 6 groups. No, 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 no. So I
Wow.
shut off. I took the act of faith and shut it off. I'm like, now what? He goes, ask people for money. I'm like, uh, can I have some money? They're like, sure. And then my friend goes he crowd funds $2 million from 7 people. And then
Wow.
one of those 7 people crowdfunded his portion from 7 other people.
I love it.
And I'm like, I just learned about this like 2 days ago. I had a brief meetup for one day. People flew in from all over the place for one day last week, this a couple days ago, Monday. And I learned at dinner this is what had happened. And see, but when you do the unconventional, but it's the right answer, people catch the wind on it and run with it, even though it's highly unlikely. The most likely refinance my building that I own, that I exist, that has 3 million in equity, and you're pulling out two, whatever. No, that wasn't the right answer. And so I had
Yeah.
to redirect, and then the money showed up. Done. And then it's go time. I'm like, that is the strangest thing ever. So being able to be redirected from the obvious thing that you hear everybody tell you to do,
Mhm.
and then listening and then admitting if you're off, and then I guess repenting and going the other way, and then it works. You're like, wow, I guess I should ask more advice. Like, I should spend more time in prayer. I should actually, because I thought, this is so basic. I made a lot of assumptions. So I guess one thing is stop making assumptions sometimes, and
Mhm.
and really reflect on what. And then there's like hidden answers in life. So it really
Yeah.
takes being redirected and trust and faith that maybe makes you unconventional. And people are like, how'd you come up with this? I'm like, I listened.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got good at listening better.
Yeah. I love that you took the time both to share this example and then extract the principles, kind of the process for how you did that. I think sometimes we can hear a story like this and we're like, okay, so if I need money, don't pull it out of the equity of
Right.
my physical asset. Go ask people for money. And that's not necessarily what you're saying. What you're saying is, create a plan and invite God into that plan and
Yes.
like make him your partner and ask him. And to your point, 9 times out of 10, his solution is not going to be the one that you came up with on your own. It's going to seem weird and wonky and strange, and it won't necessarily be the conventional one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that was
Absolutely.
a great story, Jared, but you still didn't answer the question, which was,
Reframe the
and
question again.
the question is, like, what is the purpose that drives you? What's that
Oh,
mission and North Star?
I got it.
And I think there was a lot about your purpose and mission that did get encapsulated in that story, but I want you to call it out for us.
So, years ago, I was reading the Bible and I came across, I grew up Baptist, by the way. So they didn't believe in
Okay.
much gifts or, no women in ministry. Sorry, women, you can't talk. Kids, you have to wear ties every day. And so I hated it, right? So I
Mm.
hated clip-on ties. Anybody remember clip-on ties? Wear
Oh yeah.
clip-on ties. So I was reading the Bible one day and I just felt that I got to the part about the apostles, and I'm like, man, if those still exist, I'd really like to be one of them guys. Seems like they have all the fun, besides the
Mm.
dying part. And I said, God, if there's still if you're still handing out apostle cards, I'd love to do that. And that began my journey on really studying what an apostle is. It's actually a Roman and Greek military term. You can think Christopher Columbus. A guy in a boat goes to another land to make it look like the land he came from. Now, that could be positive or negative depending on where you're at. Rome would make everything Rome. There's Bath in England, there's Bath, and it's a Roman bathhouse because it looks Roman. Because guess what? A Roman apostle went there. So Jesus said to his disciples, "You'll be my apostles." And so we kind of forget the original regular usage of that word. We made it into like some sort of museum word where the Pope's an apostle and there's 12 and there's only 12. Well, just so you know, in the Bible, there's many apostles. There were a lot. And Paul was one. There were the original 12, Judas minus one. Now you're down to 11. Now you add Matthias. Now you're back up to 12. Junia was a woman counted extraordinary among the apostles. You can read that two ways, whether the apostles just loved her or among the apostles, she was amazing. There's Priscilla and Aquila. So women actually have been counted as apostles in the New Testament. I know that's not a very popular thing to say, but if you read it, it's what it says. So when I look at it from a strategic military standpoint, in a good sense, not in the world's way of like, let's take some guns and go take over this place and make it look like America, right? And the bald eagle goes, over your face. So I am a regional transformation apostle. So when I go to Kenya on Sunday, I'm meeting with the governor, and what I do is I say, what do you need that I could help do to transform your region in your viewpoint? And so what we did is we compiled a list, and then we met with him, and it was the same list. It's a food mill, it's roads, it's hospitals, it's housing. And so I'm raising 25 million. It's all give to then go build that. It'll impact 1 million people's lives in Kitale, Kenya, and it will transform that whole region. Just by building that food mill, they'll process what they say maize, corn, and they won't ship it to the ocean and ship it back, losing a lot in just spilling over the truck or rotting or whatever. The farmers will make, I don't want to say double, but maybe double their money that they get to keep because we processed it right there in their backyard. So building that food mill is a regional transformation. So that's what drives me, is saying, well, what do my cities need as a regional transformation apostle to make it better? And obviously I preach the kingdom, and we, obviously talk about Christ and giving your life to him. I would highly recommend it. But also for everybody, to make everybody's life better, not just people who currently go to church or doing it to entice them to go to church. It's like, I want to transform the region from the powers of darkness, let's say, homelessness, abuse, dying early. So we're getting those ambulances because unfortunately, they have a very high mortality rate with birthing moms on the way to give birth. They die over there.
Wow.
So I'm dead set on getting them ambulances and also building urgent cares on the way. So we're going to fix up the big one, but what if you can't get to the big one? Well, we're going to buy ambulances. Well, what if it's too far? Then we're going to build little urgent cares spread out. So if they can't even make it all the way in, they can get stabilized there. And I met with the governor, and he kind of whispered under his breath on the way out of the meeting, if that's all I accomplish in 5 years is I get the ambulances and the hospitals, he whispered this. I think it was one of those, he just blurted out and didn't really realize he was saying it. I heard it though. So that, because he did that, and that was like his heart, whispering out, if that's all I do in 5 years, because they get a 5-year term, then I'll be happy. So I'm like, that's my number one now. I thought it was the food mill, but it's that one. And I think my assumption, which I told you not to do, is that he probably knows people that had died on the way to the hospital. And that's why it's personal, right?
Okay.
He didn't tell me that, but I'm kind of ascertaining that. I'm listening. Again, I'm listening. And then I'm like, I think that's probably why. I'll ask him next week. I said, I talked about you on a podcast. So that's my purpose, my driven, my mission is Ephesians 4:11. Yeah. Jesus gave the church, or the body, the apostles, prophets, teachers, pastors, evangelists. So I'm a regional transformation apostle. That's what drives me. And then I need big buildings and large projects to pay for all this stuff. So that's why I need the Miami skyscrapers and the Dallas ones and the Phoenix and the Denver. That's why I need to do huge regional transformation projects here, commercial, because this stuff costs money. And at the end of the road, when you're giving it, that it don't make money, it costs money. But ideally, everything we do, I try to make self-sufficient so that if the money dries up for whatever reason, people don't die. Because unfortunately, some of these countries, people end up dying if the money dries up. So I try and really make it sustainably local, but it does need sometimes an outside injection of capital to make it start.
Okay.
So there, I answered your question.
You did. And it was such a profound answer. I really appreciate you opening up and sharing something that is very personal. And I would hope that it's really inspiring people who are listening and maybe feeling a similar call or a different sort of a call. But the point is, I believe that we all have callings, and if we can really listen to it, and you discovered yours and you took it and you owned it and have like really carried that with you in all of this work that you're doing. And I'm really curious, there have been times when I have money to invest and projects and ideas, but I'm not in Africa, so to speak. Right. And I don't have contacts there, and I don't have a network. How did you even begin to build that sort of thing in a land that you didn't live?
Well, I was on a drinking team that had a rugby problem. That means a rugby team that drank a lot. Uh, and I went to church for the first time hungover. Jack Daniels was coming out of my pores. Uh, and I had to leave the main service and lay it down in the kids program at Twitch. That was my first Sunday, by the way.
Wow.
That's how it began. And over time, it just kept coming. I kept coming back. And they said, we're going to do a fast. I said, okay. I'm new to this whole thing. I'm new to being a Christian. What is fasting? You don't eat. Oh, okay. Well, let's try it. So I did 3 days with them. I think I made it 2.5. I just couldn't do the 3. But in doing that, I felt a very strong call to Africa, just in general, not a particular country. And then at the end, we all got together and said, well, what did you kind of experience while fasting? Well, some might say you were just hallucinating from lack of food. But no, I felt like it was a call. And so I was very embarrassed. They're like, who wants to talk? I'm like, and it just rose up in me, and I couldn't, like, sometimes, you like to hide when you're afraid of what people might think, and you're like, yeah, I don't want any negative, whatever, and you feel exposed, right? So I was feeling all those things. They're like, no, there's somebody here that has something to share. I'm like, would you just shut up and leave me alone? So I finally said, I feel like I got a call to Africa, and I just got it out in the most worst way. And then I kind of hung. They all rushed me, the complete opposite of what I thought would happen, making fun of me or mocking me or whatever. And they came around me and they supported me. They prayed for me, and they're like, we affirm this. I'm like, what? Like, so that was mind blowing, because I'm used to rugby culture. It's guys, so they're always tearing each other down and making fun of each other, and you don't share nothing, right? That whole life. And so this was way different. And so a year later, I had an opportunity to go on a missions trip with one of the main national leaders. And I'm like, can I go? I really feel. And he's like, all right, you could go. And so he barely let me go. And that was in Uganda in 2002. And so I went to Kampala, and I got to see Africa for the first time. And so that was the genesis of the birthing of it. And it just getting and then stewarding it. I could have fought it off or not done anything about it, but it's 2-part: pushing in to hear, listening, and then you're like, I don't know how I feel about that, but like being okay that you heard it, and then pressing in to steward that, and then explore and be curious and take risks and push in. Sometimes you got to push in for your own breakthrough that help other people. It's weird. So I had to push in to go on that first trip and ask and risk rejection. And he said yes. So that was how it started.
Okay, that's super smart. I think 2 things I'm seeing there. One, like being with people in person. It's a great way to grow your network, make a physical and emotional connection with people. Being there in person, I feel like, especially in 2023, we kind of forget the power of that. So you went there physically, and then you went there with a group who did know people, right? Who was networked in that
Yeah.
community. And that's how you got started.
Yep.
Yeah.
I went as a team member of the lowest order and just tagging along.
You
So,
started at the bottom.
yep.
Started at the bottom.
We're at the bottom. Now we're here, right? So,
Yeah. Now you're above the earth. I love it.
yes.
Yeah.
And now I take teams, I take students. I've had 2 students there for like 9 months, and they've been helping the whole region in Kitale. So it just takes you to do whatever it takes to get there in person for your
Mhm.
dream, for the thing that you're feeling and pushing. And it'll probably cost you everything. I think it's set up that way to see if you're really serious. God's like, all
Mhm.
right, let's see. And back then it cost me everything, but today it's nothing, right? I look back and it's like,
Sure.
so you've got to, it costs you everything and you have to go for it. And I think that's true for everybody on the planet, no matter what your particular calling is or what you're feeling like while you're on this earth. The enemy will resist you from trying to do it. And so it does take a bit of pushing through.
I think it's important to call this out. Like, you're a happy guy, and you've had a lot of things that have worked out for you. And you've also talked about starting at the bottom, not having the resources and not having the money, failing, having it all fall apart. You've also talked about that. And I think it's important for people to see the dichotomy. And really what happens at the end of the day, Jared, because you've experienced this whole spectrum of success and the whole spectrum of making God your partner, like you're this deep individual who has this wealth of knowledge and experience that you can draw from as you continue to, I mean, like, you're only 42, you're just getting started, friend. You're just getting 1980. You're just getting started, which is so exciting. And I really appreciate the way you show up. I told a story on a podcast recently where when I first started building my business, I thought I had to be very serious. And then I had this experience where it was the night before my first meeting with Target, and I binge watched Seinfeld eating in my hotel room, in my bed, on the iPad that I just bought. It was like a new thing, and eating M&Ms. And I woke up the next morning with like blue and red M&M on my back. Anyways, the whole point is that that was a moment that woke me up and helped me realize that fun was a value of mine, and I wasn't living it.
Yeah.
And so much so that I was like hiding it from people, and in secret, I was allowing myself to laugh. And that's one of the things that I really admire about you, is that you do make God your partner in your life. You do call out that you are an apostle of Jesus Christ, and you laugh and you have fun, and you think bigger, and you don't just talk about it, you actually do it. And I think just hearing you tell your stories will really inspire people, and maybe it will wake up their calling inside of them that they've been ignoring or excusing and saying, well, I can't do that because I don't have the money. I can't do that because I don't have the time. And you're like, cool, go create it then. And how do I do that? Well, go ask God. He'll tell you. I mean, and to your point, like, it's not complicated. And yet, almost like the Katie who felt like, well, I have to make it complicated, or it has to be serious, or it's not real. Well, if that's the case, then you will be living a very serious life or a heavy life. And it doesn't have to be. And I think you're just like such a huge light out there in the cosmos, Jared. And I really appreciate you sharing the wisdom of your experience. And if you have time, I have a couple more kind of rapid fire questions for you.
Sure. Yeah.
What's something that you do consistently every day?
I
What's
read
one of those habits.
I read a hope book, not every day, but most days. I found this book. I would highly recommend it, by Steve Backlund. It's like 40 Days to Joy or 40 Days to Hope. I should know the title. I read it all the time. And it's basically like dismantling lies and replacing them with hope. And hope is somehow it'll work out, and even if I can't see it. Faith is like, I really want this thing to work, and I'm going to believe it's gonna. And hope says, even if it doesn't, it'll be all right. And so that combination of tension helps me survive, because I'm sticking my neck out there a lot, and I don't have time to tell all the stories of angst and then how it worked out. But it really involves the faith part of, let's do this thing, and then it's like, it isn't working. And why? And then hope's like, even if I fall off the tight wire, the
Uh-huh.
tightrope, the net will catch me, and then I'll climb up and I'll do it again, and I'll learn why I did it improperly. So I read that every
Wow.
day, most days. I read the Psalms a lot, and then I'm listening to sermon. I'm listening to wisdom constantly,
Hmm.
constantly. Not all wisdom. Particular guy I like is Bill Johnson, so I listen to him, a guy full of wisdom, and I'm just at night. I put in my earbuds, and I just am constantly am feeding myself positivity, and it's amazing what happens when you do that. You could overcome, and joy comes. You've got now overflow of joy instead of just enough for you. You've got enough for you.
Well, and I appreciate you're kind of calling out the fact that there isn't an autopilot. Like you got to this mindset. And so now you don't need the book. No, you got to the mindset because of the book. And so I'm going to keep reading the book on repeat. I think that's really brilliant. Take us back to one of those times where it was all hands on deck. It was falling apart. Was there some advice that you've received in your life that really has served you in moments like that?
Not advice. Unfortunately, with what I'm talking about, you will progress more than most people, and they won't have advice for you because they didn't go
Mm,
where you're going. This is kind of the top of the mountaintop. Um,
it is.
and some of those guys died on the way. I guess in Mount Everest, they're like the frozen guy with the coffee, and he's just stuck there. Now he's a thing. So no, advice. I can't take a lot of. Not that I don't want to take him, but they're not going where I'm
Mhm.
going, so it's hard to go backwards to ask them. They're
I
not
love
on my
it.
flight. Um, yeah. So the
Love it.
question was, what advice do you take? I'm going through something today. Today, I'm going through.
Okay. Okay.
I bought a strip club to shut it down. So that was cool.
Oh,
I tried to put a carniceria in it for the last year and a half, and the guy would come to sign papers and then back out. He would come to sign papers and then back out.
a carniceria. What is that?
Mexican meat market. I'm probably saying it wrong. Carne asada. Carne.
I wondered if it had to do with meat. Okay.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So it's a
A different kind of a meat market. There was a meat market, which is a different.
yes, there was. And so I told the papers that it's all over my region. Everybody celebrated. I bought this strip club to tear it down. We took out the
Yeah.
pole. We took out the mirrors, right? There were bullets in the
Wow.
walls. Like it was seedy. There was sex trafficking going on there, all sorts of bad things.
Wow.
And then I ran out of budget. And then I have to pay the mortgage every month.
Yeah. The bank doesn't
$6,500.
care.
Bank doesn't care. $6,500 a month. That's coming out of my pocket. And then
Yeah.
like, oh, this is gonna wreck. What is going on? Well,
Uh-huh.
it turns out I'm gonna tear that place down and build a 7-story office worldwide headquarters there with a conference room with many different things, 7 floors. I'll go through it very quickly. Bottom will
Yeah.
be mud bots to print tiny homes. Second floor offices to support building tiny homes with this 3D printer, which I'm
Yeah.
having a team do. Third floor buffet because I want one because it's cool. Number four, my ministry kind of headquarters, and then floor five will be a conference center, so we'll have conferences and talk about this kind of stuff. Right, I'll have you come, Katie, yay, and then she talks and everything. And then 6 and 7 will be offices to support all these other projects I'm talking about. But that's the vision, and it was crashing down. And today, right before this podcast, I had to sign an extension where they agreed to give me no payments until I refi it with my construction loan that's showing up in May. So that's the faith that's catching me when I fell off the trapeze. And so
Mm.
it's really just putting into practice the things you know, keeping it simple, and checking your joy meter to see if you're maybe barking up the wrong tree.
Okay.
And that's just figuring it out while you go. There's a certain point where you've graduated and you're out on your own a little bit, but then you talk to people like you. You know, we have peers, and then hanging around other like-minded people really help. But you may be at the top of your whatever, but you still have peers and you'll learn from them. So I learn from whatever source I can. And kids teach you that maybe you're off base. So you can learn up, down, left, or right. And just being able to listen, really.
Jared, I love this. It's so fun to hear you externalize your thoughts. And part of what I see is you're one of those guys who jumps from mountaintop to mountaintop to mountaintop. So you're like 7 mountaintops away. And we're like, wait, where did you go? The rest of us are in the valley. We're like, where's Jared? He's 7 mountaintops away. And so if somebody ever is, if somebody who's listening is sitting here thinking, Jared has exploded my mind. My mind is like blown apart. And they're trying to hang on to one thing from this conversation. What's that one takeaway that you would really encourage people to focus on and take with them through the rest of their life?
Well, it's a 3-parter, but let's string them together.
Okay.
Number 1, listen. And adjust. If you hear something, and trust what you know to be true, that wakes you up inside, that dream that may be dying, feed it. Number 2, have faith. Take action on the thing that you know that is true. You know it is. Your circumstances may be trying to crush it, but let's know, like, that's who you are. Take faith in actionable steps for it. Number 3, have hope if the faith action you took wasn't exactly correct. That you will fall, you'll get up, and you'll try it again, but maybe slightly different. And you will get there, you will win, and it will be the best thing that ever happened to you. But a lot of people don't do any of those things I just said. But if you do those things, listen, faith actions, and hope, and then repeat through that cycle. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You'll get there, you'll win, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. And you will change people's lives because people are watching you, whether you know it or not. People are watching you. And this helps you stand up and begin to march forward to why you were put on this earth, the purpose and the reasons God's created you for. And it would be the best thing. You'll have what they call, I'll just say, harmony in your life. Things will be put into alignment, and you'll sleep good, you'll have peace, and you'll be a happy person.
Jared Walther, I feel like you just gave people the keys to the kingdom. Like, that's the secret right there. Awesome. And sometimes we think the secret is really complex, but you just shared something that was super simple. And I want to invite everybody who's listening that simple is very profound. And that was what you just shared is very profound. And in a way, you just gave us the formula for thinking bigger.
Absolutely.
So thank you. Yeah. If you want to connect with Jared, he's active on LinkedIn. Are you active on any other social platforms?
Facebook a little bit. I mean, I don't touch it much anymore, but LinkedIn is probably really good. I do have a podcast that goes through some of these things as well. It's called Grow in God. You'll find it, Grow in God. And then I do have a supernatural school ministry where I take people, now you got to move here, so it's kind of a big commitment. And I train people for like 3 years and then send them out on life's mission. But it takes a minute to do all these things. So I do have a school to help people do these kind of things. And it could take whatever flavor that is the flavor of why God made you. So I just throw that out there.
Jared, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciated all the stories and the wisdom that you shared today, because you are what's working now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, What's Working Now listeners, what if you could turn your vision into reality? It turns out it's not that complicated. And the secret is revealed in my incredible guidebook, Be the One, How to Plan and Execute Your Unique Vision. It features my custom GPS method to ensure you get there fast. With this guidebook, you'll create a clear vision, a plan, and a path for getting there fast. Now you'll finally know where to focus and if you're on the right path. You can get your copy today for less than the cost of a Chipotle dinner. So if you're an entrepreneur and integrity matters to you, faith and family matter now, not later, and you feel called to make big contributions to the world, go to now.katierichardson.com/guidebook and get started living your purpose today.